Hi, my name is Jacob. In this presentation, I'll be focusing on the AWS Cloud team as my stakeholder. This team is responsible for hosting Amazon's system, keeping it fast, reliable, and making sure customers can use it every hour of the day. So everything I explain today is framed around what matters most to that team. The AWS Cloud team care about stability, uptime, and performance. They need to make sure the system doesn't slow down, especially when there's lots of users online at the same time. They also deal with any outages, errors, and issues behind the scenes. So their focus is making sure that the platform is always available, secure, and scalable so it can grow as more people need it. The first model I chose from the SRS is the use case diagram. This shows the most common things that users do, such as logging in, browsing products, adding items to the cart, and completing orders. For the cloud team, this is really important because these actions generate the most activity on the system. It helps them understand where the heavy loads will be, which services must stay stable, and where problems could appear if the traffic suddenly increases, such as during big sales or holidays, like I talked about in the SRS. It basically highlights the areas that need the most cloud resources, which is really important for the team to know. The second model is the domain model, which is also taken from the SRS. This model shows the main backends of the system. For example, as you can see, the users, orders, products, the stock, and the payments, and how they're connected. And for the cloud team, this model is useful because it shows how the information is stored. Um, it can identify areas that rely heavily on the cloud, such as more the database side of things and storage services, and which parts need more special attention to prevent the failures that could happen. The SRS contains a lot of requirements, but these are ones I thought were especially important for the cloud operations team. Functional requirements, we have secure login, order processing, and updates to the stock, as well as login every action that takes place. These rely on more back-end services that the cloud team it'd be their job to keep it running. The non-functional requirements, such as availability, performance, and security, are the main ones. The system also needs good scalability to handle a lot of users and to limit how much faults and errors happen. Um, Especially if one part fails, they don't want the whole system to go down. So it's their job to make sure that doesn't happen. These requirements guide how the system should be hosted and how they need to support the system. If I could ask the cloud team a few questions to help improve the system, I'd ask what errors that they want to be alerted about instantly, how quickly do the alerts need to be sent when something goes wrong, and what times are best for planned maintenance or updates. These questions could help make sure the system lines up with how the cloud team actually wants things to work. So for the self-reflection, in the group project, my main strengths were helping the introduction and the requirement sections. I tried to keep writing clear and make sure that the structure was easy to follow and not too confusing. And I also tried to keep the formatting, like I said, quite consistent so the document looked as professional as possible. For my weaknesses, I relied on people too much for some of the more kind of complex diagrams. I also waited in times too long for feedback instead of just pushing ahead. This kind of messed up the time management side of things in some areas. And then towards the end of the project, I contributed a little bit less to later sections that I would have liked because, as I said, of my time management, I had to work on some other sections a bit more than I wanted to. And for me, the most difficult part of the SRS was giving each amount or each section to set the right amount of time. There were many sections, and some needed a lot more focus and a lot more attention than others. Our group had to kind of make sure that the more complicated areas got the attention that they needed, and balancing that kind of workload wasn't always super easy. But we managed it. We communicated and we planned, and as time went on. So what I thought the most useful part for me was how the software behind the app actually works. Um, Personally, I really enjoy learning about technology and more back end stuff. So seeing how everything fits together, like off the top of my head, like the models and the more the back end requirements was the most interesting thing for me, and I find that was the most useful for anyone to learn about. Um, and it gave me a better understanding of just how the systems work in the real world. So this is what I'd do differently. So if I was to do it again, I would start some sections earlier, especially diagrams. I would also communicate a bit more regularly, kind of update the team a bit more, maybe take on a more challenging part of the project, or take on some of the smaller parts, but more. Um, but overall, I think these changes they would help me contribute a bit more evenly across the whole project. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and these are the resources if you want to look into them.